Ready to roll?
Hi, Sean.
Hi, Jasmine.
Why is flood insurance important for homeowners in Galveston, Texas?
One of the primary reasons is there's the assumption that people think that the homeowners automatically covers for everything, which it doesn't. Flood insurance is a separate policy that is not covered by the homeowners, and it only covers for rising water and tidal surge. And being that we live on a barrier island, that is one of the primary things we're going to get is floods. And Hurricane Ike, over 75% of the island was underwater for flood. So it's extremely important because not only hurricanes can cause flood damage, but even like a heavy rainstorm can cause flood damage. So that's the two things that's going to happen. Either the water's going to rise up, or there's going to be a surge of water coming in from the Gulf that's going to cause damage to their home. And they need that flood policy to make sure they're properly protected and that they can replace or repair their structure after something like that occurs.
What does a typical flood insurance policy cover in Galveston?
A typical flood insurance policy covers two things. It covers the dwelling and the contents. So when you buy a home, if anything's damaged to the home due to the water rising up, that's going to get repaired by the flood policy. And then if you have contents coverage, which you can choose to have contents coverage or not have contents coverage, but if you have contents coverage, your contents will be covered. So like if this desk were to go underwater in a flood and it warps, it's going to cause damage to it, then you'll need to get coverage for your contents to cover the desk on flood insurance.
Now, most of the houses on Galveston Island, as everyone is well known, they're on piers. They're really high up in the sky.
Right.
So what about the ones that have garages on the bottom? Would those be covered?
That is a misnomer. There are a lot of houses on Galveston Island that are actually on slab. That means they're on that concrete slab and they're built. They're actually not elevated. So we have elevated homes and we have homes that are on slab. Depending on the area and where that is constructed, because there's flood zones, will determine the type of coverage they need and where the coverage starts. Because some of these elevated structures, the coverage doesn't start until the first living floor.
Now, are there different types of flood coverages in Texas?
So yes, there's two different types of flood coverage in Texas. There's the National Flood Insurance Program, which will cover through FEMA. So the National Flood Insurance Program is under FEMA. And that is a nationwide program that covers for dwelling and contents coverage. And there's also private flood insurance. So there are some areas where the National Flood Insurance Program does not write, and we write through a private insurance carrier, and people have access to that as well. So those are the two types, the National Flood Insurance Program and private insurance.
What are the common mistakes people in the state of Texas make with flood insurance?
So in coastal areas, there's a lot of mistakes that are made. First is the assumption that they're not in a floodplain. The entire country is in a floodplain. So there's a 100-year floodplain and a 500-year floodplain, which basically means the 100-year floodplain means you have a 1 in 100 chance that a flood is going to occur higher than the normal limits in a given year. You also have a 1 in 500 chance on the 500-year floodplain. So it's like a 0.2% chance that a flood is going to occur in that area over the normal levels for that year. Some other mistakes that happen in a coastal county area with flood insurance is people make the assumption that they can just go buy it at any time. The National Flood Insurance Program has a 30-day wait on the ability to write a new policy and make it effective. Unless, there is a caveat, unless they have a mortgage and they're closing on a home, then they can get flood insurance on the day that they're buying the home. But if they don't buy it when they close on the home, let's say it's a cash deal, and they're paying cash for the home, they're still going to have to wait 30 days in advance. So it would be in their best interest if they're going to pay cash for a home and they know they're going to buy it. As soon as they know they're going to buy it, they should buy the insurance on a cash deal so that they're insured as quickly as humanly possible, or as quickly as within that 30-day period. Some other misconceptions that they make is not getting enough coverage. With the National Flood Insurance Program policies, you have to insure it to at least 80% of the replacement value. And the National Flood Insurance Program residential policies, they max out on the building coverage at $250,000. So if you have a house that's a $400,000 home or a $500,000 home, you'll need to insure that structure on the dwelling coverage at the full $250,000 to make sure that you have it at the replacement cost. Some other mistakes that are made is that on that replacement cost, primary residents have replacement costs, secondary residents do not. So if you live in the Dallas, Austin, Fort Worth, New Braunfels area, and you decide you want to get a second home on the coast in Galveston, and you're like, I want to get flood insurance, the dwelling coverage on a secondary home is on actual cash value. So basically they take the cost of the structure less the depreciation, and it's going to be an actual cash value, not a replacement valuation.
I have a $500,000 house.
Correct.
Okay. And the policy, like you said, maxes at $250,000. Can I have multiple flood policies?
With the National Flood Insurance Program, it's going to max out at $250,000. You can have multiple policies. If you buy excess flood coverage through the private market, you can definitely insure that $250,001 up to $500,000. So yes, you can have multiple flood policies on a single property.
How do flood insurance premiums get calculated for Galveston residents?
Flood insurance premiums are based on a lot of different factors. One has to be the flood zone in which the home is in. So if it's in that 100-year floodplain, which is going to be an A zone or a V zone, the premium is going to be higher in that area because it has a higher propensity for a loss when we have a flood. That 500-year floodplain is going to be like a C zone or an X zone. There's multiple zones, but it's going to be less expensive because it's less likely to have that chance of a flood. Remember the 1 in 100 year, there's a 1 in 100 chance to have a flood on that property in that year, and there's a 1 in 500 chance in the preferred zone. So those are going to differ. Also, on the 100-year floodplains, there's two different types, like I said, the A zone and the B zone. The A zone, there's certain stipulations, like a lot of those structures are lifted, like they're off the ground, and then some of them have an enclosure down below. In an A zone, they're not confined to a certain amount of space. So they can actually have a little bit larger area as long as they have flood vents, and they have to have, the flood vents had to be 1 square inch of opening per square foot of enclosure. You have to have at least one on opposing walls. So you would have to have one flood vent on a south wall, one flood vent on a north wall, or one flood vent on an east wall, one flood vent on a west wall. And the opening has to be enough to be able to have 1 square inch per square foot of enclosure. On the V zones, when the structure is elevated, that enclosure down below, typically the standard policy covers up to 299 square feet, and it has to have breakaway walls, which means when the floodwaters come in, they have to be able to knock those walls down. The whole purpose of flood insurance and the purpose and the design of them building the structures like that for the flood insurance is to allow that flood water, the ingress and egress during a storm, during a tornado, during a heavy rainfall. They want to make sure that the water can rise up and leave and not get stuck and get backed up and cause additional problems.
Who can help you determine if your house is appropriately structured for flood areas?
There are engineers that can come out and look at your home. Typically the builder, when they build the structures, are the ones that determine if they're building with the International Building Code and making sure they're properly constructing it with the current flood zones in effect. There are opportunities. If you have a much older built house, that property would not be required to have current zones because those weren't required back in the days it was built. If it was built before 1974, there's depending on which community that they're in, if they were built prior to FEMA and the National Flood Insurance Program having standards, then they're not required to qualify based on that because it was not in effect when the structure was built.
Do renters in Galveston need flood insurance?
Absolutely. So renters are only renting the structure and they're bringing their contents into the structure. So they're not required to worry about the damage that's done to the structure because they're not responsible for that, but they are for their contents. So everything they bring into their home, if that water rises up and it ruins your, couch in your living room, your TV, your Sony PlayStation, any of your electronics, anything you own, that water rises up and damages it, flood insurance is going to take care of that. Your renter's policy will not cover that. You have to have the separate flood policy.
What's the difference between market value and replacement costs?
When you're looking at market value, it is what you can actually sell that structure for. The example would be, you could have a 2-bedroom, 1-bath camp house that is on waterfront property in the most pristine area, and it's just the location is so sought after that people would pay $1 million for that 2-bedroom, 1-bath home because they're going to tear it down and rebuild a mansion or something on there. But the market value is what you can get for it. The replacement value is what it costs to replace that structure. So in that same scenario, if you have a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house that's on waterfront property and it's selling for $1 million, you're not going to be able to insure it for $1 million because that's not what the replacement value is on the structure. If the hurricane comes and the water takes it out and blows it off the stilts and you got to rebuild it to like kind or quality, whatever that cost would be. So if it's $200,000, $250,000, that's what you would insure the structure for the replacement value. That's not the market value.
Does replacement value change?
Replacement value does change with the changes in the cost for building materials and labor.
Can I buy flood insurance at any time, or is there a specific enrollment period?
So on private flood insurance, you have an opportunity to buy insurance at any time. On National Flood Insurance Program policies, there's a 30-day wait. Unless, the caveat is, unless you are closing on a home and you have a mortgage, and the mortgage is requiring you to have flood insurance when you close on the home, then on the date that you close, you could have flood insurance take effect the same day.
With Hurricane Ike back in 2008, when was it appropriate for somebody to start filing after a flood event?
Anytime you have a flood event where you have floodwaters come into your home, you can immediately file for a claim. You can call the insurance company, go ahead and get the claim started, get everything rolling, because you're going to need some time to get everything processed. You'll need to muck out as much as you can. You want to prevent anything else from occurring. Anytime a claim on flood insurance occurs, first and foremost, document. Take as many pictures, as many videos as you can, so you can document exactly what happened as soon as you can. If you have to evacuate and you can't get back for 7 days, 8 days, as soon as you get back, document as much as you can and call the insurance company, let them know you want to file a claim and go over all the items that you have that have damage to them and the structure that has damage. So you need to be able to document all that information, take pictures, take videos. My recommendation would be that at the O'Donohoe Agency, what we do is we recommend that on videos, they're really key, because on a video, you can take the video and you can say, this is a Sony TV model, blah, 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 blah. Like, you can call out the models. And if there's a serial number, call out the serial number. So that way you can document everything for the claims adjuster.
Should you only have those documents before the flood event, or should you always have those documents?
The O'Donohoe Agency recommends that you, once a year, at a minimum once a year, redocument everything you have. So because our lives change, because we buy new things, we replace things, you want to just take an inventory once a year, just go around the house. A recommendation would be like, open up the cabinets and just video like everything you have, so that if and when something does happen, that the insurance company will be able to walk in, or you'll be able to present them with the video and say, hey, this is my home. This is what I had. This is the damage I had. This is where I am right now. So they will have that information. They can see it in your home and can show them that, yes, you had this in your structure and we need to pay you for that.
Here in Galveston, Texas, we notice, during hurricane season, flooding is potential almost every time it rains, or when a hurricane is brushing up on the shore. Now, is that the only time we should be worried about being flooded?
Oh, no, because year round, there are opportunities. There's storms that pop up. We have northern storms that'll come in. You'll have tropical storms in the summer. You have hurricanes in the summer. So there can be just a crazy storm in an off-season time where it just rains and rains and rains and can flood the streets, flood into your home, and you want to make sure you're properly protected. At the O'Donnell HC, we recommend everybody to have flood insurance, especially on a barrier island in Galveston County, because there is an opportunity for them to have a flood loss, and we want them to be properly protected.
If flood does destroy my house or ruin most of my house, and they determine that it is uninhabitable or condemned, does my flood insurance cover anything of that nature?
Yes. And to your point, a perfect example would be we had a waterfront structure that was a condominium. It was a mid-rise condominium. The hurricane did damage to the foundation of the mid-rise condominium. The insured on the 6th level had flood insurance. You would say, wait a minute, 6 floors up, they have flood insurance? Yes. And in this situation, because the foundation was eroded due to the hurricane, they condemned the building. The flood insurance will pay for the loss to the contents in that condo in that situation because it's condemned. There's no way they can get to it, and the flood waters caused that damage.
So when one of these locations are condemned, we don't have any point access to that building anymore.
Correct.
Okay.
So if you have a condemned building, they will not let you go in and retrieve your property. And because of that, if it's due to flood waters, the flood insurance is what's going to pay for the loss of that property.
How much flood coverage do I really need in Galveston, Texas?
In Galveston, Texas, the amount of flood insurance you need is going to be the maximum you can get to replace your structure and your contents with something of like kind or quality. So if it floods, if you max out at $250 on the National Flood Insurance Program and your house is worth $500,000, we recommend that you take out excess flood coverage to cover that additional $250,000. We also recommend that you cover as much as you can on your contents, because if you have a loss, you want to make sure you can replace those items.
Now, in a case of a loss, and that is my primary residence, because I don't have a second residence, this is my main point of living. If for some reason I lose access to that house, does flood cover for me to live somewhere else?
No, there is no loss of use coverage on flood insurance. On a homeowner's policy, there is loss of use coverage. On a windstorm policy, there is loss of use coverage. But if your house, you have water rise up in your house, damage your structure, and you have to live somewhere else while that structure is being repaired, there is no loss of use coverage on that. And also to let you know, on a primary residence, on the contents, it's actual cash value as well. So on your primary residence, you can have replacement cost coverage on your dwelling, but on your contents, everything inside is going to be actual cash value. So if you bought this calculator for $7 a year ago and it was in your house and it flooded, whatever that $7 minus the depreciation over the year is what the flood insurance policy is going to pay you. So you might only get $4 or $3. That's going to be with every item that you have in your home or in your condo or in your apartment.
So when should I be reviewing my flood insurance policy?
You should review your flood insurance annually with your insurance agent. You should go over all your policies, your homeowner's policy, windstorm, and your flood. Review those annually. Make sure if there's been any changes, you articulate that to your agent. If there haven't been any changes, let's take a look at the building cost and the labor cost if they've changed, and make sure the replacement value is where it should be. But annually you should review all your policies.
Now, if I do an addition or a renovation or remodel through the middle of that policy period, should I be letting my agent know as well?
Absolutely, 100%. If you alter your structure, you definitely want to have a conversation with your agent. And if you're going to alter your structure over 50% of the valuation of the structure on replacement cost valuation, if you go over 50%, you will change that and you will have to bring your house up to current codes. So you want to make sure that you're talking to your insurance agent as well as your builder or your remodeler, and they're talking to an engineer to make sure you're not going over 50%. And if you do go over 50% of that valuation, you make sure that house is already set up to be within the guidelines of whatever zone it's in, whether it's an A zone or a V zone, because those changes, once you go over 50%, they almost treat it as if it's like a new structure.
Now, where should I go if I need a flood quote?
You should call the O'Donnell Agency if you need a flood quote, 409-356-0065. Give the O'Donohoe Agency a call. We'll look over all the details for you. And if you have a current flood policy right now and you just want a second opinion or have somebody take a look at it, we'd be glad to do that for you as well.
What's the biggest risk of not having flood in Galveston?
I've seen it multiple times, and it's unfortunate. When people live in Galveston, on the island or in the county, and not having flood insurance, and then them having a flood and the damage that it does to their property and the pain that it causes because of having to replace all those items and having to do it out of pocket is terrible. During Hurricane Harvey, it's unfortunate, but there were homes in Hurricane Harvey that were in Galveston County that were in that X zone I was talking about earlier, that 500-year floodplain. And it was unfortunate because there was conversations where the mortgage company doesn't require homeowners in that 500-year floodplain to have coverage.
Wait, they don't require it in Galveston?
Yes. If you're in that 500-year floodplain, the mortgage company is not going to require that you have flood insurance. It's whether you want to take it or not. And again, like I said earlier, you got a 1 in 500 chance. So that's a 0.2% chance that it's going to flood in your area higher than the base flood within a given year. And right now, the National Flood Insurance Program, you go look up the data, it'll tell you 40% of the flood claims annually happen in those zones. So if you go to FEMA.gov, look up FloodSmart, they're going to tell you that in the preferred flood zone, that 1 in 500 chance flood zone, 40% of the claims paid out every year are in those areas.
Does flood insurance cost more in coastal areas compared to other areas of Texas?
Absolutely. So the closer you are to the water, whether it's the beach, whether it's the bay, whether it's a river, the closer you are to those water areas, the higher the premium is going to be because you have a higher propensity for a loss. You're much closer. The farther you are away, the less the premium is going to be. And again, that doesn't mean there's less of a risk, like for you not having it at all, because there's still a risk, right?
So in Texas, just here recently, the Guadalupe River flooded.
Right.
So if they don't have flood coverage, none of that stuff was going to be recoverable. Is that correct?
No. And that's the scary part about it, is because that happened so fast. It's not like a hurricane or a tropical storm where they're forecasting, hey, it's coming, you've got days in advance. That rain event in the precise area that the rain hovered over and the downpour that it caused, it is sad. It is sad what occurred in that event. And there are a lot of people that did not have flood insurance because they felt as if, well, I'm higher off the river and, my whole lifetime it's never flooded, up to this level. Like I said, the 1 in 100 chance and the 1 in 500 chance, there's still a chance no matter where you are. The O'Donohoe Agency always recommends that you have flood insurance coverage to make sure you're properly protected, to make sure that you can put that house back to the place it was prior to the loss, as well as that you can recoup some funds to be able to replace the contents you have inside your home.
Can businesses in Galveston also have flood insurance?
The beautiful thing about flood insurance for businesses is actually the dwelling coverage, you can go up to $500,000. So residential coverage under the National Flood Insurance Program maxes out at $250,000, but on businesses, it goes up to $500,000.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, they're bigger buildings.
Yeah.
They have more to lose.
Yeah.
But most of them are stable. They just have to carry the inside.
Well, so to your point, on the east end of the island, downtown area, Hurricane Ike, big business, family friend that I know, they had rising water come in and damage all the inside of their commercial structure. And they were lucky that they had $500,000 coverage because they had to rip all the walls out, tear everything down. When your structure floods, typically the way the flood insurance looks at it is if you have a finished in area, drywall sheets, if you turn them sideways, they're 4 foot tall, right?
Right.
So if your structure floods below 4 foot, typically in that situation, they're going to pay up to 4 feet to pull everything out and replace it all. If it goes over 4 feet, now they're going to go up to 8 feet because 2 sheets of drywall, you get to 8 foot. So you want to make sure that you have enough coverage, because in Hurricane Ike, there were a lot of structures that had 6, 7, 8, 10 feet of flood waters in their structure. I mean, it's...
Now, the O'Donohoe Agency was one of those, correct?
Yes. Our agency had over 4 foot of flood water in it.
Did y'all have flood insurance?
We did have flood insurance, and we were able to gut everything out and replace everything back. And the beautiful thing about the way the world has evolved and technology has evolved is, even though that we're on a barrier island, we still have the ability for our team to evacuate during one of these events, to be able to set up remotely with laptops and telephones and still be able to take care of our clients if and when a hurricane occurs. So we want to make sure that we are always taking care of our clients, making sure we're positioning our team members in a place that after a loss, that we are ready, set, go to get them taken care of, get those claims filed, and work with them on making sure they get the right adjusters out. And in those situations, it's always a recommendation for us, not just for flood insurance, but for homeowners and windstorm. We're always going to recommend to you that you try and schedule the appointment with your adjuster, with whoever your contractor is, so they meet at the same time and can have a conversation and be on the same page when they're talking about what's going on. Because the adjuster has to go by what he has in his requirements when he's processing the documentation for a claim. The gentleman or lady that has the construction company is going to have their set of guidelines as far as what the cost of their materials is going to be, the cost of labor. So having those two together at the same time affords the opportunity to help process that claim even faster, so that you can get put back to the place you were prior to the loss much, much faster.